I'm Dr. Ryan Holsapple, and I'm here with my friend and business partner,
Karen Johnson.
and Karen and I are starting a new podcast that is within our business, Center for Creative Choice. Karen has a lot of experience and a lot of training that has to do with the self-soul-spirit model. Karen and I were both trained in that model by Dr. Roger Strachan. I went on to complete a PhD with a lot of supervision and help from Dr. Strachan, and Karen has been immersed in transformation and spirituality for, over a decade?
Well, I would say spirituality my whole life.
Yeah.
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 But maybe real intensive, intentional focus since, over a decade, probably like 13 years.
Center for Creative Choice is our home now. It's our business. It was passed down to us by Dr. Strachan, and it is our new vision for the world. Is how we're going to be manifesting our purpose and our careers and
Our passion.
using the self-soul-spirit model.
Yep.
So I think a big question people will be having, since this is our first episode, is really about who are we? I gave some credentials, I dropped some names, I dropped a model, and I think at the same time, fleshing that out a little bit, telling our stories a little bit might be appropriate, and then we can get into what our model is about and what Center for Creative Choice is here for. Does that feel good to you?
And what you could look forward to receiving out of the work we are here to offer.
Yes. Yeah. This is for the audience, that we're offering this as a way for them to potentially explore themselves and connect with themselves, their souls, and their spiritual existence.
Yep.
And you had a cool tagline that you said for us recently. What was it?
Yeah, I feel like really the essence of what we are doing here at Center for Creative Choice is the intersection of psychology and spirituality and where those two meet and what that means and looks like in our everyday lives.
Right on.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It feels powerful. It feels like your expertise brings this very concrete psychology background.
Yes.
And so why don't you share your
Yeah, I have a
credentials?
PhD in depth psychology from Pacifica Graduate Institute, where I studied Jungian and archetypal psychology. Jungian obviously needs no introduction, Carl Jung, and James Hillman, who was the founder of archetypal psychology. And there I had a really unique opportunity because I had met Dr. Strachan, who is this expert clinical psychologist who's had a career of working with clients for 70 years, right? He's 91 years old now and very gifted, has been nominated for Best Therapist in the country, for Best Therapist in Arizona, has been highly touted by his colleagues and his friends and his clients for decades. And needless to say, this is a brilliant man who came into my life through therapeutic intervention. I met him in 2010 on the tail end of some addiction treatment and some early sobriety, where I was just a teenager. Now I'm 31 years old. At the time, I couldn't have been much older than 18, 17 years old when I met Roger. And Roger took my personality and showed me all the different parts of it. And the fact that I'm not a single voice. And we're going to get into that later, but all you need to know for now is that self, soul, spirit, the model, starts with the basis of we have subpersonalities, we have parts. And if you ever heard somebody say, a part of me feels like this, but another part of me feels like that, that is human existence, that we have these multiple I's, these multiple parts that call themselves I, and we try to cram ourselves into a single voice, but it's actually an illusion. We have multiple parts that always are trying to get their needs met or achieve their wants and go after their desires. And Roger would, soon after we first met, take me under his wing and become my mentor. So by 2013, I was training with him constantly. I was asking him questions all the time. We were spending hours and hours and hours together every week. and he was basically giving me a mega download of what his understanding was of psychology, what his understanding was of the human soul, and what his understanding was of spirit. And Roger has a really unique background because he's a scientist, and he also is a deeply spiritual being with a very powerful connection to his soul, with a great philosopher. So he's really been able to create a model in Self, Soul, Spirit that blends an understanding of evolutionary principles and neurobiology with an understanding of consciousness and the fact that we are not just complex algorithms or computers, we are human beings, and the being part is primary, and the being is our consciousness, and that the universe is a creative force, that we didn't just come out of this deductive pattern of ones and zeros, that we actually came from a creative source, a creative consciousness. You can call it the creator, you can call it spirit. I think we would both agree that that's spirit, the ultimate source of who we are. So now imagine me now for over a decade training with Dr. Strachan. He's supervising my work with clients while I'm going through school. And just to tell you how brilliant Roger is, I got more out of training with him than anything else I did. It didn't matter what class it was. It didn't matter what other mentor. It didn't matter what other program I took. I did a lot of different trainings. I did life coach trainings. I did Nature Connection trainings. I did tracker survival skills. I did all sorts of expanded consciousness and spiritual trainings. In essence, I was doing deep dives on the human psyche and the human spirit. And Roger took me to levels that nobody else could take me, which is attested to by so many other people in his life, thousands of his clients who have just experienced the brilliance of this psychologist. So I had this special gift that was given to me by Roger of mentoring. And through that, eventually he started asking me, Ryan, will you take over Center for Creative Choice? Will you be the new director? So I was highly honored and highly complimented. And, at first I sort of resisted it, didn't know how to make it my own, didn't know how to accept it, being just such a brilliant gift, and how to sort of be Ryan and also accept Roger's legacy. And I found a very authentic way of doing this, because the more I trained with Roger, the more I was able to use his training to tap into my own wisdom. And as I completed my PhD, I basically did my whole doctoral dissertation on applying the Self-Soul-Spirit model. I looked at psychic multiplicity, and I looked at consciousness, and I basically said this idea that we have a single I, you could call it an ego, you could call it a single self, it doesn't matter, is not true. That the I that we use in our everyday speech is more of a verb than a noun. And the reason I was able to do this is through working with Roger for so long. He showed me through examples, through working with me, through showing me his work with others, through academic work. He showed me how self, soul, and spirit come together, and how these multiple parts speak a voice through us using the word I. So our job in this podcast is to bring a totally new paradigm for what psychology is, and for what our practice of spirituality means, and who we are as souls. And that new paradigm is that these multiple parts are what they are. They want what they want, and they will try to get it. And it's our job as souls to be aware of it and to make creative choices about what to do with it. So that's Center for Creative Choice. And I'll just tie up my dissertation by saying that what I ultimately suggested in that dissertation is that we have the self is the multiple parts, the soul is the deeper essence, and the spirit is really the integrative framework that allows us to exist in a greater wholeness, that allows us to be a part of an individuation. Because if we just had these parts, then those parts would essentially fragment and splinter off into their own values, and there would be no cohesive synthesis or integration back into a whole. Because we have a soul and because we have a spiritual greater reality, wholeness exists as real, and it can be honored and reached through practice. And so we will often talk about integration and individuation and spirit, because those are all practices that help us become more whole, that help us realize the wholeness that's already within us. And that's a work of love. That's the labor of love. So there's a little bit about my background, how I came to this point. Now, interestingly enough, for a long time, I thought I'd be taking over the directorship alone. And I was pleasantly surprised when Karen Johnson became a candidate for co-director. And Karen and I are great friends, and she's my sister. We've adopted each other as brother and sister, as well as business partners now. Karen will tell you about her story with Roger. All that I will say for now is that this brilliant woman has a connection with spirit, with soul, and with her multiple parts that is so profound. And what she does is guide other people and facilitate this work so that they can understand the parts of who they are, they can connect with their souls, and ultimately come to spirit, because Karen really specializes in spirit. And it's a unique gift that this world really needs. So we complement each other well. Where I come in from the psychology background, Karen is just pulling a tremendous amount of weight spiritually in terms of the wisdom that she carries within her, and her ability to contribute to Center for Creative Choice. So I am enjoying exploring spirit alongside her as my spiritual sister. And why don't you tell them about when you met Roger and how you got to where we are speaking today?
Yeah, I would love to. I also feel like adding in a little bit of what my life was like before Roger could be helpful, just to bring in the spiritual side more clearly. I went to seminary when I was in my mid-20s, and that's really where my pursuit of spirituality became this concrete thing in my life. And when I was in seminary, I realized that, yes, ironically, what I was studying in seminary was called soul care. And so it was really fun to see that I've always been passionate about the soul, about spirit. And yet that was kind of my first encounter with soul, was when I was in seminary. I had a moment, ironically, in a bathroom when I was working on my thesis to finish a graduate degree. And I just heard my soul so clearly say, yes, soul, no to this specific path. And so I just knew that I needed to leave seminary and find my own path to spirituality and what that looked like in my life. And so fast forward maybe 8 years is when I initially met Roger, Dr. Strachan. I was preparing to go out on what is called a nature fast, where you spend time in the wilderness by yourself for 4 days. And really it's a time to reflect and get away from all the distractions that are so loud, especially in the Western world, because we're so busy. And we always have so much going on. And I was getting ready to go out on this quest, and by just certain connections, someone introduced me to Dr. Strachan, and he was actually only living 30 minutes south of where I was living. And so I was told, hey, this man can really prepare you to go out on this quest, and his work you might be interested in. And so I met Dr. Strachan, and he prepared me for my wilderness quest, and that was really the start of our relationship. And from day one, I felt like a kindred, instant soul connection with him, that I knew like there was going to be more past the quest with us. And that was in the summer. And then in the fall, he offered, or serendipitously, we had the same thought kind of in the same timing, that I was meant to train with him. And so my training started, I believe that was like 6 years ago. I started training with him pretty intensively, and then getting certified in his work at the time. I did finish a graduate degree in human development and education in the midst of these years. And I would echo what Ryan said, is that my work with Roger really was the creme de la creme. Like, it's what taught me about what it means to be human, what it means to be also a spiritual being, how to connect all these dots in my life that until that point didn't make a lot of sense. And so Roger's work is really where I found my purpose and the starting, really a launching point of a new direction for my life. And so I was really, really excited when this all came to be for us to work together and carry on the legacy of a man that we both deeply respect and deeply love, and really has changed us in ways that we could talk about for a long time.
Yeah, it's so special. It's hard to describe in words.
Yeah.
And lest everyone think we're just bragging, which we are a little bit, it's real. It's something that you have to experience to understand. I talk to people who know Roger, and we share this camaraderie, those of us who have worked with Roger.
Yeah.
Because we all know how special what he's been able to do with us and for us is. And we understand his gifts, that you have these rare individuals that are born into planet Earth every so often that are just called. Yeah. And not only are they called, they thrive in their calling, and they're a genius in their calling. You know, Roger knows that he's brilliant. I think as a therapist, he borders into genius. You know, his brilliance is global. His ability to come up with therapeutic interventions that are based on power with. That's the thing that people need to understand about the model we use, is that it's a power with model. This is not a one guy's on a pedestal looking down on you, analyzing you, telling you who you are, interpreting your own feelings for you on the therapy couch. And it's also not just a deep listening. It's not just somebody who says, I hear you. Yeah. It's somebody who hears you and knows how to poke and prod in ways that invite you into yourself. That can be uncomfortable, that can be incredibly rewarding, that can be incredibly validating. Very few people feel as seen as they do when they work with Roger. Why is that? Well, because he's got the deep listening. Not only does he hear the words, he knows where the words are coming from, and he can look into your psyche and see your limbic system, which is the part of your brain that holds a lot of the emotional, it's where we live our lives emotionally, where we experience. And he can hear you from the perspective of, I hear that this little girl in you has this feeling. And I hear that this judge in you has this feeling. And I hear that this teacher in you has this feeling. And to say it in such a way that is so validating. And that's how he trained us. But he didn't train us to be clones, did he? No, because the very basis of his model is that we're all unique. Yeah. And that goes into genetics. That is so important for our model, is understanding the genetic science, that Karen Johnson is one of a kind. There are no two human beings alike. Not even identical twins are exactly the same. And that the genetics we bring in are tremendously impactful in terms of how we direct our lives and what we find valuable and what we find interesting. And then the environment comes in and plays a role about what the options are and what the setting is. See, the environment isn't an influence. The environment is a setting and a mutual interaction. The environment is where we can nurture who we are, so that based on the options available, certain parts of us develop more strongly and in distinct ways. So I often use the example that, well, if you bring in the genes for alcoholism, but you'd never get exposed to alcohol, let's say you're an Eskimo or something, I don't know, maybe they did have alcohol. Let's say they didn't. Yeah. If they didn't have alcohol, they wouldn't develop the alcoholism. Now, that set of genes that devotes to alcoholism might express in different ways that are highly compulsive. That we understand that for a lot of addicts and alcoholics, that compulsivity runs throughout the system, that anything worth doing is worth overdoing. Yep. The point is that we are talking about a man who listened to your uniqueness, and his model, Self, Soul, Spirit, created in 1973 along with Center for Creative Choice, is the honoring of that uniqueness and the empowering of the individual to direct their lives based on their unique selves. That there's no one size fits all, is there?
No. Yeah. I mean, neither I will definitely not be a Roger in the work we offer. And that's beautiful, is that we each, that's what I think this work, I mean, we're going to share so much about what we think is so beautiful about the work we offer. The biggest one being we're celebrating our uniqueness and honoring the complexity that we bring into the world instead of putting ourselves into boxes according to another paradigm.
Yes, and what we have today is Ryan Holsapple and
Yep.
Karen Johnson honoring our uniqueness
Yep.
and launching Center for Creative Choice as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to explore how we use the model through our own unique mandalas. We're going to teach you about the mandala throughout these podcasts. We're going to teach you about soul. We're going to teach you about spirit. And it's going to be a conversation, so that if you have questions, you email us or put it in the comments on YouTube, right? If you're listening to this as a podcast only, then you'll have to email. And that you get to engage with us in the process of self-discovery so that we can grow and learn together. So we have this invitation that we all bring our uniqueness to the table and see what happens.
So what do we actually offer through CCC, Center for Creative Choice? One of my favorite offerings is we do couples work. What's unique about working with us is that it's a 2-on-2. We like to mirror couples instead of develop or make a triangle, which a lot of other, it's pretty common in therapy world.
Yeah, explain what a triangle is so they understand.
A triangle would be the couple meeting with one therapist, or we call ourselves facilitators. And what often happens in that dynamic is it can feel like a 2 against 1. And so in a square, I feel like the energy flows a lot more smoothly and a lot more in a collaborative way, that we're all there together doing the work instead of it feeling like we're pitting against each other.
Yeah, in essence, we facilitate, and we should spend just a moment on that word.
Yeah, probably.
That the idea of facilitation is that the client does all the work, the couple does the work. Our job is to poke and prod and offer and create exercises and positions for the client to step into, for the couple to step into, to work through their own sub-personalities so that they can find the answers inside. See, we don't give advice because advice has no meaning. We might speak from a part of us that has a desire, hey, I'd really like to see you thriving in this, or I'd love this. And yet we own that as our voice because the client's the one who has their own wisdom, that they have all the answers. So facilitating honors that inside job, that it's all an inside job. And in couples work, we facilitate in that square, as Karen put it. And I just want to elaborate and piggyback on something you said, is that we want a clean container. If we have a triangle, we have one person trying to mediate two people's relationships, and it creates these splitting phenomena where there are these biases.
Yep.
Where it's like, if I'm the therapist and here's the couple, I'm trying to somehow be neutral, but I can't, because I have my gender identity, I have my subpersonalities, and I'm trying to manage two different people, and I'm gonna authentically resonate in certain ways with these people, and that can lead to someone not fitting in. And that can lead to also manipulation and other issues where the therapist gets stuck in the middle.
Yep.
So in the square, what you have is this ability to all share as power with team, and there's nowhere to hide, and there's also all that room to grow because it's totally transparent. There's no secrets, there's complete trust between the two facilitators, and there's representation of both parties in the relationship, whether that be both genders or both people, so that they know that there's a clean, open relationship. And we keep it clean also by having our own boundaries around, hey, we got to keep this in the group. You can't call me Tuesday, Sally, and talk about John.
Yep.
No, if we're going to do that, we all get on the phone together. We all do the session together so that it's clean communication.
Yeah. So that's one of our offerings. We offer to work with couples. Another offering are we don't have any dates set yet, but we will down the line be offering workshops.
Absolutely.
Probably in the northern Denver area. And then
we'll keep you posted. We'll announce those.
Yes, we will.
And we'll do couples workshops. We'll do educational workshops, learning about the model. I will offer some more philosophical workshops around really deep dives into self-soul spirit. And Karen and I will offer transformational workshops together. And you also currently do women's groups.
Yes, those are really fun. I do women's groups where I currently live, which is Leadville, Colorado. Those groups are in person. We've done about 5 different groups. Some of those groups have been going for 3+ years. And those are really fun. And I look forward to offering more women's groups in the Front Range area, most likely in the fall, which we will also announce those dates.
Yes, and a great way to stay updated on what we're offering is our website, which will be posted in the descriptions of all of our podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, whether it be iTunes or whether it be Spotify or whether you be listening on YouTube, wherever you're going to be listening to this, we will have links and information. Check out the website. We'll have the email address so that you can contact us with your inquiries. And yeah, so it'll all be there for you to connect.
Yep. Is that all of them we want to share?
Well, you'll be doing some wilderness offerings as well.
Yes, the nature fast I was speaking about earlier, I love to facilitate that for others. That one, though, does require you to work at least for 6 months, more in our one-on-one offerings and small group offerings to prepare for it.
And you want to talk about what the wilderness work is for and what the reason that you do it?
Sure.
So they understand.
Yeah, so it's really tailored. It's meant to be a really intimate experience. So far I've only done one-on-one wilderness offerings where I would bring someone that I've been working with for a while into the wilderness, and we set up together. Part of the word facilitator is that we set it up tailored to the individual. And so it may look like fasting from food, it may not. It may look like you're by yourself for 4 days. It may look like we have check-ins every now and then to make sure you are guided in what your intention was to go out into the wilderness. Really, the wilderness is a place to affirm something. It's not a place to go seeking answers. And so it's really a great experience for if you've come to a place in your life and you really want to solidify something that has happened.
Thank you for listening to this introductory episode of Self, Soul, Spirit by Center for Creative Choice. Karen Johnson and I will continue to do podcasts and ultimately serve people in making creative, self-empowering choices in their lives. You can follow us, subscribe on YouTube, make sure if you're listening to this on audio only that you save the podcast and keep coming back. We're going to be releasing episodes roughly once a week. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, check the description for our website, www.centerforcreativechoice.com, our email address, and contact us to inquire about work with us or to ask questions that we can address in our podcasts in the future.